Welcome to our channel. This video covers the entire course from the CITB book called Health, Safety and Environment Test for Operatives and Specialists. This video contains over 700 questions and answers. We guarantee that watching this video is all you need to prepare for your final test. This video focuses on the following key topics, inclusive of subsections: working environment, occupational health, safety and high-risk activities. To make it easy to move through the video series and focus on your particular section of interest, you will find a link in the top right corner. The actual CSCS test usually takes about 45 minutes, and you need to answer at least 45 out of 50 questions correctly to pass. Before we dive in, please support us by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. We appreciate it. Let us learn together.
The Health and Safety at Work, etc. Act, 1974, contains legal duties for employers and employees. Visitors and workers must be given a site induction and authorised to enter site. Employers must provide information to workers about site rules, welfare facilities, and emergency procedures. Workers should be provided with clean welfare facilities and information regarding hazards and risks at work. Everyone on site is responsible for the consideration of neighbours and members of the public. Employees should follow a safe system of work agreed with the employer. A safe system of work would include information such as the sequence of work and any hazards associated with the task. The purpose of a risk assessment is to identify hazards and control risk. Risk assessments consider the likelihood of a hazard occurring and the seriousness of harm that could occur. A method statement will inform a worker of the safe way to carry out a task. If a task feels dangerous or unsafe, stop work and report it immediately.
You have witnessed a serious accident on your site and are to be interviewed by a Health and Safety Executive (HSE) inspector. What should you do? Ask your supervisor what you should tell the inspector. Not tell the inspector anything and ask them to talk to your supervisor. Cooperate and tell the inspector exactly what you saw. Ask other workers what you should tell the inspector. If you notice that a design detail can't be built in the way it has been drawn in the plans, what two things should you do? Leave that detail out altogether. Keep quiet, as it will mean more work for you. Only make the changes when they are approved in writing. Raise the issue with your supervisor before you start work. Build it as you think it should be done.
When workers arrive on site, what is the first thing they should do? Walk around the site to inspect the work from the day before. Enter the site by the easiest route and start work. Get their tools out of the store and start work. Make sure that the site team knows they are there. If a worker fails to report a near miss, what could happen? The company could go out of business through neglect. The employee could get a large fine. The near miss could be a serious accident next time. The site manager will be sacked immediately. What are two possible consequences for you if your employer does not prevent accidents and ill health at work? You will have to work longer hours to earn more money. You may suffer an injury, affecting your health and well-being. You won't get the training required to continue working on site. You may not be able to work, which would affect your income and family life. You will have worse welfare facilities on site while improvements are made. What are two possible consequences for employers of not taking measures to prevent accidents and ill health at work? They could be fined or imprisoned. They will damage the environment. They will need to employ more people. They will have to change the site layout for emergency vehicles. They will lose time and money due to the cost of any accident or ill health. What does the word hazard mean? Anything that could cause harm. The construction site accident rate. The likelihood of something happening. A type of removable barrier or machine guard. What is the main reason for understanding the fire and emergency procedures on site? To know where the fire exits and assembly point are in an emergency. To know what tools and equipment can be used during an emergency. To help you to get time off work in an emergency. To stop anyone leaving site in an emergency. Who is responsible for managing health and safety on site? Site manager, building inspector, contracts manager, health and safety executive, HSE. Why is it the employer's legal responsibility to discuss matters of health and safety with employees? So that employees do not have any responsibilities for health and safety. So that employees will never have to attend any other health and safety training. So that employees are informed of things that will protect their health and safety. So that your employer will not have any legal responsibility for employees' health and safety. General site rules would not normally include information about which one of the following: personal protective equipment, PPE, names and addresses of workers, near-miss and accident reporting, site induction procedures. If someone is injured on site, where should this be recorded? In an accident book or record, on the Safe System of Work plan, on the site plan, in the method of work. What should all risk assessments identify? The employer, how to report accidents, the health and safety executive, HSE, the hazards in the work environment. When creating a risk assessment, the severity of harm is multiplied by what? The number of workers on site, the likelihood of harm occurring, the cost of injury or harm, the area of the construction site.
Which two topics should be covered in a site induction? Site rules, local transportation links, holiday entitlement, site emergency procedures, local amenities.
How would you expect to find out about health and safety rules when you first arrive on site? During the induction, in a letter sent to your home, by reading the health and safety policy, by asking other workers to show you around.
What is a toolbox talk? A short training session on a particular safety topic. A talk that tells you where to buy tools. Your first training session when you arrive on site. A sales talk given by a tool supplier.
What is the main reason for attending a site induction? To get to know other new employees. Site rules and hazards will be explained. To create the method statements for the site. Permits to work will be written and handed out.
What should you do if the safety rules given in your site induction seem out of date as work progresses? Nothing, as safety is the site manager's responsibility. Speak to your supervisor about your concerns. Speak to your workmates to see if they have any new rules. Make up your own safety rules to suit the changing conditions.
During the site induction, you do not understand something the presenter says. What should you do? Attend another site induction. Ask the presenter to explain it again. Guess what the presenter was saying. Wait until the end, then ask someone else to explain. Employers must provide workers with instructions that meet which requirement? Downloadable from the internet, written in large print, available in audio, in a format each worker understands. A worker finds a way of working that is quicker than the method statement they have been given. What should they do? Inform work colleagues so they can work this way. Get their work done more quickly so they can leave early. Get more work done so they can earn more money. Continue to follow the safe system of work for the task. Who should you speak to if the work of another contractor is affecting your safety? Your supervisor, the contractor, your workmates, the contractor's supervisor.
What should you do if you cannot do a job in the way described in the method statement? Make up a better way to do it and carry on. Do not start work until you have talked to your supervisor. Ask other workers how they think it should be done. Contact the Health and Safety Executive, HSE.
What should a worker do if the helmet they are using is damaged? Use it, but keep checking it. Put a sticker over the damaged area. Report it at the end of the day. Replace it immediately.
Plant and machinery should only be used by authorised and competent operatives. Reporting unsafe conditions is everyone's responsibility on site. Reporting near misses will help to prevent them happening again. Any accident causing injury must be recorded in an accident book. All relevant staff should be involved in investigating accidents and near misses.
You suffer an injury at work and the details are recorded in the accident book. What must happen to this accident record? It must be kept in a place where anyone at work can read it. It must be sent to the insurance company at the end of the job. It must be treated as confidential under data protection laws. It must be destroyed at the end of the job due to confidentiality. What must be done if an operator is driving plant equipment faster than site speed limits? Alert all other staff on site to be careful. Inform a supervisor or manager. Shout at the driver telling them to slow down. Wait until they stop and talk to them about it. In order to reduce the risk of accidents, which one of the following should be avoided when driving vehicles on site? Use designated turning areas. Implement a one-way system around the site. Drive through loading and unloading areas. Reverse without the use of a vehicle marshaller. Which two of the following would result in you being ordered off-site? Losing your road user's driving licence. Being under the influence of alcohol. Driving downhill with a heavy load. Driving without using the flashing beacon. Being under the influence of drugs. You have been injured in an accident at work and, as a result, are absent for more than 7 days. Which two of the following actions must be taken? The accident must be recorded in the accident book. The local hospital and the benefits office must be informed. You must pay for any first aid equipment used to treat your injury. Your employer must inform the Health and Safety Executive, HSE. The emergency services must be called to find out how the accident happened.
If you have a minor accident, who should report it? Anyone who saw the accident. The subcontractor. You, if possible. The Health and Safety Executive, HSE.
You are injured in an accident at work. When should you report it? The next day before you start work. Immediately or as soon as possible. Only if you have to take time off work. At the end of the day before you go home.
Why should you report an accident? It helps the site find out who caused it. It is a legal requirement. So that everyone can find out what happened. So that your company will be held responsible.
Who must you report a serious accident to? Site security, the police service, your employer, the ambulance service.
What action should be taken if you witness a serious accident on site? Telephone the local doctor for advice. Tell your supervisor that you saw what happened. Say nothing in case you get someone into trouble. Ask your workmates what they think you should do.
Which of the following statements best describes a near miss? An incident where you were just too late to see what happened. An incident that nearly resulted in injury or damage. An incident where someone was injured and nearly had to go to hospital. An incident where someone was injured and nearly had to take time off work.
While working on site, you cut one of your fingers. What should you do? Report it and get first aid if necessary. Clean it and tell your supervisor about it later. Wash it, and if it is not a problem, carry on working. Report it at the end of the day or the end of the shift. What is the main objective of carrying out an accident investigation? To place blame. To identify the people involved. To find the cause and prevent reoccurrence. To help track the cost of insurance claims.
A scaffold has collapsed and you saw it happen. What should you say when you are asked about the accident? As little as possible, as you are not a scaffold expert. As little as possible because you don't want to get people into trouble. Exactly what you saw, giving as much detail as possible. Who you think should be blamed and punished.
Which two of the following are the main reasons for reporting accidents, incidents, and near misses? To find out whom claims should be made against. To understand how and why things went wrong. Certain incidents or accidents have to be reported to the Health and Safety Executive, HSE, to make sure none of the supervisors find out about the accident. To help the company avoid being prosecuted or fined.
Which two of the following items should be recorded in the accident book? National insurance number. Date of the accident. Location of the hospital. Injuries sustained. Telephone number.
If someone is injured at work, who should record it in the accident book? The first aider identified on site. The company contract manager. The injured person or someone acting for them. Someone from the Health and Safety Executive, HSE. Which of the following does not have to be recorded in the accident book? Details of the injury sustained. The injured person's home address. The date and time that the injury happened. The injured person's national insurance number. Which of the following is the least important reason for recording all accidents? It might stop them happening again. Details have to be entered in the accident book to find out who is to blame and make sure they are prosecuted. Some accidents have to be reported to the Health and Safety Executive, HSE.
All first aiders should have a current, up-to-date First Aid at Work certificate. The place to go in the event of an emergency is called an assembly point. The location of the emergency assembly point should be identified in a site induction.
What should be done in the event of an emergency on site? Follow the site emergency procedure. Collect your personal items and leave the site. Leave the site by the nearest exit and return home. Phone the Health and Safety Executive, HSE, for advice.
Which two of the following will help you to find out about the site emergency procedures and emergency telephone numbers? Guidance from the Health and Safety Executive HSE website. Reading the site notice boards. Guidance from your local job centre. Attending the site induction. Looking in the telephone directory.
How should you be informed about what to do in an emergency? Give two answers. By attending the site induction. By looking in the Health and Safety file. By asking the Health and Safety Executive, HSE. By asking at the local hospital. By reading the site notice boards.
What two things should you do if there is an emergency situation on site? Go to the designated assembly point. Look for other people who may not know what to do. Finish what you are doing. Collect personal items from the site office. Leave the area via the nearest exit.
What information should be gathered after a near-miss incident occurs? The names of next of kin for the people involved. Where those involved lived at the time of the incident. The activities that were being carried out at the time. The cost of the project at the time of the incident. You witness a serious accident on site. What immediate action should you take? Give two answers. Call out to other workers so they can call for help. Check if it is safe to approach the injured person. Sit the injured person up and give them food and water. Record the date and time in the incident book. Lift the injured person and take them to the site office. What should not be in a first aid kit? Bandages, plasters, safety pins, tablets and medicines.
Does your employer have to provide a first aid kit? Yes, every site must have one. Only if more than 50 people work on site. Only if more than 25 people work on site. No, there is no legal duty to provide one.
If the first aid kit on site is empty, what should you do? Bring your own first aid supplies into work. Ignore the problem as it is always the same. Find out who is taking all the first aid supplies. Inform the person who looks after the first aid kit.
What is the one thing a first aider cannot do? Give mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Stop any bleeding. Give you medicines without authorization. Treat you if you are unconscious.
Evacuation routes should be lit at all times of the day, painted bright green, used as assembly points, clear and unobstructed. If you find an injured person and you are on your own, what should you do first? Assess the situation. Do not put yourself in danger. Inform your supervisor that someone has been injured. Move the injured person to a safe place, then find your supervisor. Ask the injured person what happened, and then find your supervisor. Someone working in a deep inspection chamber has collapsed. What should you do first? Climb into the inspection chamber and give first aid treatment. Get someone to lower you into the inspection chamber on a rope. Raise the alarm and stay by the inspection chamber, but do not enter. Ask someone to find your supervisor while you try to rescue the worker. Someone is knocked unconscious and you are not trained in first aid. What should you do first? Send for medical help. Slap their face to wake them up. Give them mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Turn them over so that they are lying on their back. Someone has fallen from height and has no feeling in their legs. What should you do? Keep them still until medical help arrives. Roll them onto their side and bend their legs. Raise their legs to see if any feeling comes back. Keep their legs straight and roll them onto their back. Someone collapses with stomach pain and there is no first aider on site. What should you do first? Ask them to sit down. Get them to take some painkillers. Ask someone to call the emergency services. Help them to lie down in the recovery position. If you think that someone has broken their leg, what should you do? Place them on their back. Send for the first aider or get other medical help. Use your belt to strap their legs together. Place them on their side in the recovery position. If you cut your finger and it won't stop bleeding, what should you do? Wash it, then carry on working. Find a first aider or get medical help. Wrap something around it and carry on working. Tell your colleagues because you may need to rest.
If there is an emergency while you are on site, what should you do first? Leave the site and go home. Phone home and then leave the site. Follow the site emergency procedure. Phone the Health and Safety Executive, HSE. If someone is in contact with a live cable, what should you do first? Phone the electricity company. Dial 999 and ask for an ambulance. Isolate the power and call for help. Pull them away from the cable.
Employers should provide workers with personal protective equipment, PPE, and the means to maintain it correctly, free of charge. Wearing personal PPE will help to protect workers from physical injury or ill health. Size and fit should be considered in the selection of suitable PPE. Stop work immediately and replace PPE if it gets damaged.
When must your employer provide you with personal protective equipment, PPE? Twice a year. If you pay for it. If it is in the contract. If you need to be protected.
If you have to work outdoors in bad weather, why should your employer supply you with waterproof clothing? To keep you warm and dry so you take fewer breaks. To protect you from the weather, which will reduce trips and falls. To keep you warm and dry so you are less likely to catch Weil's disease, Leptospirosis. To protect you from the weather, as you are less likely to get muscle strains if you are warm and dry. Which of the following statements about personal protective equipment, PPE, is not true? You must use it as instructed. You must pay for any damage or loss. You must store it correctly when you're not using it. You must report any damage or loss to your supervisor. Which of the following statements about wearing a safety helmet in hot weather is true? You can modify it to keep your head cool. You must wear it at all times and in the right way. You must take it off during the hottest part of the day. You can wear it back to front if it is more comfortable that way.
What should you wear if there is a risk of materials flying into your eyes? Tinted welding goggles, laser safety glasses, chemical-rated goggles, impact-rated goggles.
When using a grinder or cut-off saw, what type of eye protection should be worn? Impact-rated goggles or full face shield? Light eye protection, safety glasses. Reading glasses or sunglasses? Welding goggles. When should you wear safety footwear on site? All the time. Only when working inside. Until the site starts to look finished. Only when working at ground level.
When is the only time that you do not need to wear head protection on site? If you are self-employed. If you are working alone. If you are in a safe area, like the site office. If you are working in hot weather.
When you start a new task, how will you know if you need any extra personal protective equipment, PPE? You will always need it. By looking at the risk assessment. By looking at the company web page. By looking at your employer's health and safety policy. What is the main risk to this worker wearing only these items of personal protective equipment, PPE? Dermatitis to skin. Damage to hearing. Eye injuries. Breathing in harmful dust. When selecting appropriate personal protective equipment, PPE, what is the most important factor to be taken into account? The type of hazard. Can it be recycled? The cost of the equipment. How long it will last. What additional measures can be worn under a hard hat in cold weather? A baseball cap. A jumper with a detachable hood. A woolly hat. A manufacturer's attachment. What will safety footwear with a protective midsole protect you from? Spillages which may burn the sole of your foot. Blisters which could occur in warm, wet conditions. Twisting your ankle as they have better grip than regular shoes. Nails or sharp objects which could puncture the sole of your foot. Which condition could be prevented if the correct gloves are worn while handling a hazardous substance? Arthritis. Skin disease. Vibration white finger. Raynaud's syndrome. Will all types of glove protect your hands against chemicals? Yes, all gloves are made to the same standard. Only if you cover the gloves with barrier cream. Only if you put barrier cream on your hands first. No, different gloves protect against different types of hazard. Which item of personal protective equipment, PPE, is helping to protect the worker from dermatitis? Good quality personal protective equipment, PPE, will be marked with which letter or letters? CE, C, HSE, R. How should a safety helmet be worn to get maximum protection from it? Back to front. Pushed back on your head. Square on your head. Pulled forward. What should you do if your disposable foam earplugs keep falling out? Throw them away and work without them. Put rolled up tissue paper in each ear instead. Put 2 earplugs in each ear so that they stay in place. Stop work until you are shown how to fit them properly. If you need to wear a full body harness and have not used one before, what should you do? Try to work it out for yourself. Ask for expert advice and training. Read the manufacturer's instruction book. Ask someone wearing a harness to show you what to do. Which of the following figures is wearing the correct personal protective equipment, PPE? Where on the body would a worker wear respiratory protective equipment, RPE? Arm, leg, face, body.
Everyone is responsible for minimising the amount of waste generated on site. Following the site environmental risk assessment will help to prevent pollution on a construction site. Segregating waste materials supports recycling and helps to avoid pollution. Reusing leftover materials helps to save energy and conserves raw materials. Recycling construction materials avoids waste going to landfill. Everyone on site should take responsibility for saving energy and water by turning off plant equipment and taps when not in use. A good way of reducing energy if heating or cooling systems are being used in site accommodation is to keep windows and doors closed. Spill kits should be available to clean up spilt chemicals and oils. Bats and badgers are classed as protected species and are protected by law. Many historic buildings are listed and protected by law. Permission is required before making any changes to them.
What should be done with waste concrete and washout water? Bury it on site as it will break down over time. Pour it down a drain with plenty of water. Bury it in a disposable bin liner. Place it in a lined skip for recycling. This label is shown on the container of a liquid that a worker is using on site. What does it mean? It can be used to feed plants and fish. It is harmful to the environment. It could cause a drought. It will only cause death to fish. Which 2 of the following are common causes of water pollution on site? Fuels being stored incorrectly and too close to drains. Rainwater washing material out of skips into surface water drains. Exhaust gases from mobile plant getting into drainage systems. Smoking and e-smoking near drainage systems. Walkways freezing in winter near drainage systems. Which one of the following is true of a spill on site involving just 1 litre of oil? It is too small to cause a problem. The main problem is that oil is expensive. It will contaminate the ground. It could cause serious air pollution. Which 3 statements are reasons why saving energy is important? It helps to reduce fuel and energy bills on site. It helps to increase energy use on other sites. It helps to save natural resources used to generate energy. It helps energy companies to charge more for their services. It helps to reduce the impact of climate change caused by burning fossil fuels.
What are 2 of the best ways of helping to save energy on site and reduce harmful emissions? Switch off plant and equipment, including generators, when they are not in use. Use a generator rather than mains electricity for the offices and small items of equipment. Report any defective non-powered hand tools so that they can be repaired or replaced. Keep windows and doors closed in offices and welfare facilities when the heating is on.
Over-ordering materials can result in what? Accident, waste, danger, lower costs. You are on site and need to throw away some waste liquid that has oil in it. What should you do? Pour it down a drain or sink in the welfare facilities. Pour it slowly onto the ground and let it soak away. Pour it into a sealed container and put it into a general waste skip. Ask your supervisor what the disposal process is for contaminated liquid.
Which two items are classed as hazardous waste? Broken bricks, untreated timber offcuts, panes of glass, fluorescent light tubes, used spill kits.
Which items are hazardous waste and which are non-hazardous waste? Fluorescent light tubes, broken bricks, untreated timber offcuts, oil-based paint. What is the correct way to clean up oil that has leaked from machinery onto the ground? Put the oily soil into the general waste skip. Wash the oil away with water and detergent. Mix the soil up with other soil so that the oil cannot be seen. Put the oily soil into a separate container for collection as hazardous waste. How should hazardous waste be dealt with on site? Give 2 answers. Put it in a mixed waste skip. Segregate it from other waste. It can be put into any skip on site. Place it in the correctly labelled container. Take it to the nearest local authority waste tip. Under environmental law, which of the following statements is true? Only directors can be prosecuted if they do not follow the law. Only companies can be prosecuted if they do not follow the law. Only employees can be prosecuted if they do not follow the law. Companies and employees can be prosecuted if they do not follow the law. What should be done if there is an oil or diesel spill on site? Use a spill kit to clean it up before the end of the day. Ignore it. Oil or diesel spills do not have serious long-term effects. Stop work, contain the spill, notify the supervisor and then clean up the spill. Call the Environment Agency immediately so they can arrange to have it cleaned up. Which of the following is most likely to cause air pollution? Fuel spillage, using diesel engines, surface runoff, excessive noise.
Which two actions could help minimize waste? Reuse offcuts, such as half bricks, rather than discarding them. Use new materials at the beginning of each day. Leave bags of cement and plaster out in the rain unprotected. Only take what you need and return or reseal anything left over. Always take more than required, just in case you need it. What are the 2 most important reasons why waste should be segregated on site? The waste will take up less room in a skip. It is generally more cost-effective to dispose of segregated waste. So the client can check what is being thrown away. So the wastes can be used or recycled more easily. To make sure the labourer has enough work to do.
Which of the following is bad practice? Storing materials safely. Mixing all waste in one skip. Refueling carefully to avoid spills. Switching off plant and equipment when it is not in use. On site, waste should be collected in what? segregated skips, bins and bays, general skips, bays and buckets. Certain species of plants and animals in England are protected by law. A worker is breaking the law if they do which two things to the plant or animal? Report it, photograph it, remove it, feed it, destroy its habitat. Which of the following is an effective way to avoid causing harm to protected species? Only working at night. Avoiding breeding season. Take them to the site office. Using manually operated machinery. During excavation work, some interesting old coins are found in the loosened soil. What is the most appropriate action? Stop excavating the site and contact the supervisor. Keep excavating and see how many more there are to find. Keep quiet. The person who found them should keep them. Hide them. Archaeologists working on site will delay the works. Preserving old buildings is important for contributing to an area's what? Historical record, cost of living, infrastructure, house prices. Which of the following does not cause a nuisance to neighbours of a building site? Dust and fumes from the site, carefully directed site lighting, lorries and heavy plant traffic, noise and vibration from the work. You are carrying out a noisy work activity and realise that it cannot be finished within the normal working hours of your site. What is the first thing you should do? Carry on so that you can finish doing the job as soon as possible. Visit the neighbours of the site to tell them what you will be doing. Ensure you are wearing appropriate hearing protection before you resume work. Stop work and inform site management so they can look at the impact of the activity. Why is it bad practice to store heavy materials underneath a tree? The tree branches could get damaged. Materials are not protected from the tree sap. Mould could grow on the stored materials. Compaction of the soil could damage the tree roots. Which of the following would help to protect the environment? Keeping accurate timesheets. Arriving on time for work every day. Keeping to the health and safety rules. Saving water and energy wherever possible. What is the best way to minimise dust on site? Covering the whole site. Using powered tools only. Reducing use of the wheel wash. Dampening using fine water sprays. What type of pollution would you associate with handheld power tools? Smoke, noise, water, light.
Harmful dust is often invisible to the naked eye. Breathing in harmful dust can cause life-shortening illnesses. Breathing in construction dust can result in occupational lung diseases such as asthma and silicosis. Face fit testing should be carried out as part of the initial selection of RPE. A face fit test will ensure that your respiratory protective equipment, RPE, fits and functions properly. Wearing your RPE will help to prevent you from breathing in harmful dust and fumes. RPE will only be effective if it fits the wearer's face properly. An on-tool extraction system is a method of dust control. Fumes will build up very quickly in a confined space. Carbon monoxide is a colourless, odourless, poisonous gas. Sparks or naked flames can easily ignite flammable vapours.
You have been asked to do some work that will create dust. What should you do? You should not do the work because dust is highly dangerous. Start the work. No controls are needed as dust cannot cause serious harm or injury. Work for short periods at a time. Regular breaks will reduce the amount of dust you breathe in. Use equipment to eliminate or reduce the dust and wear the correct personal protective equipment, PPE. If someone is using a petrol cut-off saw, disc cutter, to cut concrete blocks near to pedestrians, what two immediate hazards will affect the pedestrians? Harmful dust, an electric shock, flying fragments, contact dermatitis, vibration white finger. What is the main cause of long-term health issues in the construction industry? Slipping and tripping, exposure to loud noise, being struck by a vehicle, breathing in hazardous dust and fumes. Where are you likely to be exposed to the highest quantities of dust when drilling, cutting, sanding or grinding? Inside a small room. Inside a large space, outside on a still day, outside on a windy day. What is the best way to limit exposure to dust when using a power tool? Do the work quickly. Stop dust getting into the air. Stand downwind of any dust. Use the tool during wet weather.
Which of the following activities does not create harmful silica dust? Sawing timber or plywood. Cutting curbs, stone, paving slabs, bricks and blocks. Breaking up concrete floors and screeds. Chasing out walls and mortar joints or sweeping up rubble.
After asbestos, which of the following causes the most ill health to construction workers? Wood and MDF dust, diesel fumes, silica dust, resin, solvent and paint vapours.
What is the main risk to this worker wearing only these items of personal protective equipment, PPE? Breathing in harmful dust, back injury from poor posture, goggles misting up, limiting vision, not being able to hear colleagues. What is the main risk to this worker wearing only these items of personal protective equipment, PPE? Breathing in harmful dust, back injury from poor posture, goggles misting up, limiting vision, not being able to hear colleagues. What is the most serious risk to this worker wearing only these items of personal protective equipment, PPE? Breathing in harmful dust, back injury from poor posture, goggles misting up, limiting vision, not being able to hear colleagues. Pigeon droppings and nests are found in an area where you are required to work. What should you do? Stop work, do not touch anything and seek advice. Carry on with your work carefully so you don't disturb them. Try to catch the pigeons so you can move them out of the way. Wait for the pigeons to fly away before carrying on with your work. How should water be used to reduce the level of dust when cutting concrete using a cut-off saw? Enough to wet the surface of the concrete before cutting. Constantly the whole time the concrete is being cut. Constantly until you are halfway through the concrete cut, then stop. Enough to make the first cut, then no more will be required. Before clearing up some rubble inside a building, why is it advisable to spray water on it? So it doesn't make a mess. To prevent dust clouds. To kill any insects in it. To save time. What should you do if you find lots of old bird nests and droppings in an area you are working in? Carry on working and work around them. Sweep them up and put them in a bin liner immediately. Stop working and speak to a supervisor to arrange for decontamination work. Check there are no live birds present, then carry on working. What best describes how workers should treat dust? Assume dust is safe if they are working outdoors. Assume dust is not safe wherever they are working. Assume dust is safe unless told otherwise. Assume dust is safe if they don't feel any ill effects. Which of the following is not an immediate health effect of being exposed to paints and resins which have high levels of solvents? Headaches and sickness, dermatitis or skin problems, muscular and skeletal disorders, drowsiness or poor coordination. Engine-driven equipment is being used in a deep excavation. Which of the following should be in place? Gas monitoring alarms, additional excavation covers, a vehicle marshal, additional stop blocks. Who can enter a confined space? Only competent machine drivers who have the correct license. Anyone who has completed an apprenticeship. Only site managers and supervisors of the company. Anyone who is trained, competent and authorized. Which kind of personal protective equipment PPE can protect your lungs from harmful vapours? Goggles, hard hat, respirator, ear defenders. Which material or substance is most likely to give off hazardous vapour? Dust, rubber, glue, wet concrete. What can cause occupational asthma? Exposure to rat urine whilst working. Exposure to loud noise on a regular basis. Skin contact with any hazardous substance. Breathing in hazardous dust, fumes or vapours. Exposure to which of the following is unlikely to result in lung disease? Asbestos, silica dust, strong smells, bird droppings. Which item of personal protective equipment, PPE, is helping to protect the worker from nasal cancer? Asbestosis is associated with exposure to asbestos. Which part of the body does this disease affect? Hands, lungs, feet, brain. A construction worker has been exposed to concrete dust for a long period of time. What are they most likely to suffer from? Headache or migraine, blurred vision, hearing problems, shortness of breath. The chances of suffering from lung cancer are increased by what? Breathing in dust, vibration from power tools, exposure to sunlight, exposure to steam. When using a power tool to cut or grind materials, why should the dust be collected and not allowed to get into the air? Most dust can be harmful if breathed in. The tool will go faster if the dust is collected, to save time and avoid having to clear up the mess. A machine guard is not needed if the dust is collected. What potential disease is this worker unprotected from? Tetanus, nasal cancer, dermatitis, skin cancer. Hydrogen sulfide is a gas given off by rotting organic substances. Which two statements are true about hydrogen sulfide? It can cause unconsciousness in a few breaths. It is dangerous because it can disable the sense of smell. It is a harmless natural gas. It is dark brown at room temperature. It can safely be detected by using a naked flame. Which one of the following is true of repeated exposure to small doses of dust? It can help to build up immunity. It is unavoidable and harmless. Any effects will be immediately apparent. The effects will build up over time. What should you do if you need special respiratory protective equipment, RPE, to handle a chemical, but no RPE has been provided? Sniff the substance to see if it makes you feel unwell. Start the work, but take regular breaks to reduce exposure. Do not start work until you have the correct RPE and training. Get on with the job, but try to work quickly to reduce exposure. If you have been given a dust mask to protect you against hazardous fumes, what should you do? Start work without a mask, but take regular breaks outside. Do the job wearing the mask, but work as quickly as you can. Do not start work until you have the correct respiratory protective equipment, RPE. Wear a second dust mask on top of the first one in order to increase the protection. The seal between an item of respiratory protective equipment, RPE, and a worker's face is most likely to be affected by which two of the following? Beard growth, wearing safety goggles, sunlight, the wearer's age, dust levels. Which two factors determine the appropriate type of respiratory protective equipment, RPE, to be used for a job? Whether the RPE is made of rubber or plastic, the amount of time since a hazardous spill, whether the worker wants to wear RPE or not, the amount of hazardous substances in the air, the type of hazardous substance. Which two of the following are basic filter types used in respiratory protective equipment, RPE? Moisture filters, smell or aroma filters, sound filters, dust or particle filters, gas or vapor filters. Which one of the following statements about respiratory protective equipment, RPE, is true? Employers must supply it at cost when it is needed. Employers must supply it free of charge when it is needed. Workers should provide their own. Workers should share the cost with the employer. How should contaminated respiratory protective equipment, RPE, be considered when being disposed of? As recyclable materials, as normal waste products, as compostable wastes, as hazardous waste. A particle filter is suitable for use in which one of the following situations? Presence of gases, an oxygen-deficient atmosphere, when dust and fibres are in the air, presence of vapours. Why is it important to be clean-shaven when using a half-mask respirator? Facial hair can block the filter more quickly. You may suffer an allergic reaction to the mask. Facial hair can affect the seal around your face. You will be able to use the same mask for longer. Which of the following do you not need to do to ensure that someone's mask works? Check the mask is being worn correctly. Check the mask is the correct type needed. Check the mask underwater to make sure the seals are tight. Check the user has passed a face fit test while wearing the mask. The seal of your respiratory protective equipment, RPE, can be broken by which two things? Facial hair, facial scarring, makeup, a hearing aid, earrings. What is the most important consideration when wearing respiratory protective equipment, RPE? The weight is correct. It has a good seal. Being able to smell. It is the correct colour. If your respiratory protective equipment, RPE, is a bad fit, which one of the following is most likely to happen? It will not protect you. It will break easily. It will filter more air. It will get damaged. How often is it good practice to carry out repeat face fit tests for respiratory protective equipment, RPE? On a regular basis. On an ad hoc basis. When starting a new shift pattern. When starting work on a different site. Respiratory protective equipment, RPE, fit tests should be carried out by whom? The worker who will carry out the work. A supervisor in compliance with the law. The manager overseeing the work. A competent person in compliance with the law. Planned work requires the use of a power tool to cut or grind materials. Select the two best ways to control the dust. Wet cutting. Wear a dust mask. Work slowly and carefully. Keep the area clean and tidy. Fit a dust extractor or collector to the machine. What must you do when using water to keep dust down when cutting? Ensure that there is as much water as possible. Make sure that the water flow is correctly adjusted. Pour water onto the surface before you start cutting. Get someone to stand next to you and pour water from a bottle. When drilling, cutting, sanding or grinding, what is the best way to protect your long-term health from harmful dust? Use dust extraction or wet cut and wear a dust mask. Wear FFP3 rated respiratory protective equipment, RPE. Wear any disposable respiratory protective equipment, RPE. Use dust extraction or wet cut and wear FFP3 rated respiratory protective equipment, RPE. What should you do if you run out of the water you are using to control dust? Stop and refill the water. Put on additional respiratory protection. Ask everyone to clear the area and then carry on. Carry on, but get someone to sweep up afterwards. Which of the following two options are likely to cause the most dust exposure? using power tools without extraction, using hand tools outside, working with wet or damp materials, working with dry materials, using power tools with extraction. When working with materials creating dust, what should be monitored? The level of exposure to the dust, the colour of dust created, the smell the dust creates, the direction in which the dust travels. Using water suppression to reduce dust will be most effective for which one of the following? Steel grinding, cutting plywood sheets, disc cutting steel, pneumatic chiselling of concrete.
If you have to raise your voice to be understood as a result of noise on site, stop work and raise the problem with your supervisor. Always wear the correct protection in a hearing protection zone. Exposure to vibration is a serious issue as it can result in disabling health conditions that cannot be cured. Hand-arm vibration syndrome, HAVS, includes a range of conditions that can lead to permanent damage in the hands and forearms. Regular use of handheld tools and equipment that vibrate is the main cause of hand-arm vibration syndrome. Your employer should explain safe methods of use and give you advice on exposure times for handheld vibrating tools.
How can excessive noise levels affect your hearing? Give 2 answers. Hearing improvement, ear infections, permanent hearing loss, temporary hearing loss, dizziness and nausea. What are the signs and symptoms of noise-related hearing damage? Ear infections and regular headaches, nausea and a skin rash around your ears. There are no signs or symptoms associated with hearing damage. Difficulty following a conversation, especially against background noise. If you hear a ringing sound in your ears after working with noisy equipment, what does this mean? The noise level was high but acceptable. You have also been subjected to vibration. Your hearing has been temporarily damaged. Your hearing protection was working properly. Can the damage by exposure to noise over a long period of time be reversed? Yes, if you change jobs. Yes, if you have an operation. No, the damage is permanent. No, unless medication is used. What should an employee do if they think noise at work may have damaged their hearing? Take time off work as they are unwell. Nothing, as the damage has already been done. Ask their employer or doctor to arrange a hearing test. Plug their ears with cotton wool to stop any more damage. What is the main risk to this worker wearing only these items of personal protective equipment, PPE? Dermatitis to skin, damage to hearing, eye injuries, breathing in harmful dust. Your doctor tells you that you have hand-arm vibration syndrome, HAVS, possibly caused through work. What should you do? Tell no one, as it's not contagious. Only inform your friends at work. Inform your supervisor or employer. Tell no one, as HAVS is not reportable. What are 3 early signs of hand-arm vibration syndrome, HAVS? Rash on the fingers. Fingertips turn white. Blisters on the fingers. Temporary loss of feeling in the fingers. Tingling or a pins and needles sensation in the fingers.
Which one of these tools is the most likely to cause hand-arm vibration syndrome, HAVS, HAVS? Hand saw, hammer drill, hammer and chisel, battery-powered screwdriver.
What health problem can be caused by using handheld vibrating tools? Blisters on your fingers and hands, skin cancer on your hands and arms, damage to the blood vessels in your fingers and hands, an itchy skin irritation like dermatitis affecting your hands. You are less likely to suffer from hand-arm vibration syndrome, HAVS, if you feel which one of the following: cold but dry, cold and wet, warm and dry, wet but warm. You have been using a vibrating tool and the ends of your fingers are starting to tingle. What does this mean? You can carry on using the tool, but you must hold it more tightly. You can carry on using the tool, but you must loosen your grip. You need to report your symptoms before they cause a problem. You must not use this tool or any other vibrating tool ever again. What are 2 recommended ways to protect your hearing? Earplugs in your ears, ear defenders over your ears, soft cloth pads over your ears, rolled tissue paper in your ears, cotton wool pads over your ears. Noise levels may be a problem if you have to raise your voice to be heard by someone standing how far away? What does wearing hearing protection do? Helps you to hear better. Repairs your hearing if it is damaged. Stops you hearing all noise in the workplace. Reduces damaging noise to an acceptable level. If you need to wear disposable foam earplugs, how should you insert them so they protect your hearing from damage? Do not roll or fold them and insert them halfway into your ear canal. Fold them in half, pull on your earlobe and wedge them halfway into your ear. Soak them in water, squeeze them out, and then insert them into your ear canal. Roll them up and insert them while pulling the top of your ear up to open up the ear canal.
What should you do if you need to wear ear defenders but an ear pad is missing from one of the shells? Leave them off and work without any hearing protection. Put them on and work with them as they are. Do not work in noisy areas until they are replaced. Take an ear pad from another set of ear defenders.
Using a grinder whilst wearing this personal protective equipment, PPE, could result in which of the following? Lung disease, Weil's disease, hearing damage, eye injuries. What should you do if someone near you is using noisy equipment and you have no hearing protection? Speak to the other person's supervisor to stop them making the noise. Ask them to stop what they are doing as it is disrupting other workers on site. Carry on with your work as you are not the person using the noisy equipment. Leave the area until you have the correct personal protective equipment, PPE. How can you help reduce the risk of hand-arm vibration when using a vibrating tool? Hold the tool more tightly. Use more force on the tool. Hold the tool at arm's length. Do not grip the tool too tightly. How can the effects of hand-arm vibration be reduced if you are using vibrating tools? Complete the job in one long burst. Only use one hand at a time on the tool. Do not smoke, as it affects blood circulation. Hold the tool as tightly as you can and work quickly. What risk does this worker face by using this tool on a regular basis? Dermatitis from repetitive use. Weil's disease caused by the dust. Hand-arm vibration from prolonged use. Back injury caused by using heavy equipment. What do the initials HAVS stand for? Hand-arm vibration syndrome. Hand and ventilation system. Heavy arm vibration system. Heat and ventilation syndrome. Which two potential health issues are more likely when using a hammer drill for long periods of time? Carpal tunnel syndrome. Vibration white finger. Hepatitis. Head injuries. Speech impairment.
If you are under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or prescribed medication, it can make you feel drowsy, slow your reaction times, and affect your judgment. This will increase the risk of an accident at work. Long working hours or poorly designed shift work schedules can result in fatigue. If you are suffering from fatigue, you are more likely to have an accident at work. Fatigue can result in an increase in errors in the workplace. Stress is defined as the adverse reaction people have to excessive pressures or demand placed on them. Stress can affect anyone. A lack of concentration, anger, and sleep problems are all warning signs. Stress at work can have a negative effect on your mental well-being. If you are concerned about a colleague's mental health, speak to them about it. Talking and listening to people without judgment can help to overcome negative attitudes to mental health in the workplace. If you feel that you are having mental health issues, you should ask for help as early as possible. Talking about mental health issues is a good way of helping to manage them. Exposure to ultraviolet radiation from the sun is one of the main causes of skin cancer in the construction industry. You are less likely to have an accident if your work area is clean and tidy. Adequate lighting and good housekeeping will reduce the risk of slips and trips. If the welfare facilities on site are not adequate or are dirty, report the issue to your supervisor. It is good practice to have access to a telephone and a means of raising the alarm if you're working alone.
A worker is taking medication which could affect their health and safety in the workplace and that of others. What should they do? Tell their manager. Work harder on site. Go and see their doctor. Take regular breaks. When an employee returns to work after an absence due to illness, what should they speak about with their employer? The details of the illness to make sure no one else can catch it. The effects of medication they are taking which could affect safety at work. The number of times they have visited their doctor before returning to work. Any treatment costs they have to pay to help them get back to work. What action should shift workers take at work if they are taking time-dependent medication such as insulin? Ask colleagues to help them remember when to take their medication. Consult their doctor and inform their manager to help plan how to accommodate this. Only work shifts after they have taken their required medication. Not tell their colleagues each time they need to take their medication during the shift. How should absence records containing specific medical information relating to an employee be treated? Confidentially, in accordance with data protection laws. As public information, in accordance with freedom of information. The records can be shared with the workforce as long as they do not say anything. Provided to the rest of the workforce to prevent others taking time off.
If your doctor has given you some medication, which of these questions is the most important to ask? Will it make me unsafe to work or operate machinery? Will it make me work more slowly and earn less money? Will it cause me to oversleep and be late for work? Will I fail a drugs test if my employer asks for one?
If you suspect someone at work has been drinking alcohol, what should you do? Ask them to stay away for an hour and then go back to work. Get them to drink plenty of strong coffee before they go back to work. Report the situation to your supervisor, as they may be unsafe to work. Get them to eat and drink something, wait 30 minutes and then go back to work. What are the minimum facilities that must be provided on site for washing your hands? A cold water standpipe and paper towels. A water container, bowl and paper towels. There is no need to provide washing facilities. Hot and cold water, soap and a way to dry your hands.
What are 2 ways of reducing the risk of transferring hazardous substances from your hands to your mouth? Wearing protective gloves while you are working. Washing your hands before eating. Putting barrier cream on your hands before eating. Washing protective gloves before each use. Using barrier cream for working activities.
What should you use to clean very dirty hands? Soap and water. Thinners. White spirit. Paraffin.
What should you do if there is nowhere on site to wash your hands? Wait until you get home, then wash them. Go to the local public toilets and use their wash basin. Speak to your supervisor or the site manager about the problem. Nothing, as the site does not have to provide washing facilities.
Why should you not use white spirit or other solvents to clean your hands? They could block the pores of the skin. They will remove several layers of skin. They could strip the protective oils from the skin. They could carry harmful bacteria that attack the skin.
What is the main issue with using barrier cream to protect your skin? It costs too much to use every day. It can be broken down by some substances. It is difficult to wash off. It can irritate your skin and give you dermatitis.
When should you apply barrier cream to your skin? Before you start work. When you finish work. As part of first aid treatment. When you can't find your gloves.
What can cause occupational dermatitis? Using tools that vibrate. Contact with another person who has dermatitis. Contact with some strong chemicals or substances. Working in the sun without sun cream.
What condition can be caused by direct sunlight on bare skin? Dermatitis. Rickets. acne, skin cancer.
To help protect outdoor workers from the risk of skin cancer from sun exposure, what should be worn? Low-factor tanning oil and short-sleeved shirts. High-factor sunscreen and long-sleeved clothing. Extra moisturizer on the face and short-sleeved shirts. A small amount of deodorant and vest tops. Prolonged exposure to sunlight could cause what? Hair loss, burns, abrasion, dental issues. When referring to protection, what is a high UV rate cream designed to protect you from? Dermatitis, Legionella, sunburn, abrasions.
What is the most likely source of hepatitis in this image? How does tetanus, an infection that you can catch from contaminated land or water, get into your body? Through your nose when you breathe. Through an open cut in your skin. Through your mouth when you eat or drink. Through the pores in your skin.
What is the main risk to this worker wearing only these items of personal protective equipment, PPE? Damage to hearing, eye injuries, breathing in harmful dust, cuts and abrasions to skin. Reducing the risk of cuts and abrasions would require protection for what part of the body? Bones, blood, hair, skin. Which disease is most likely to be caught through cuts, grazes or puncture wounds? Tetanus, dermatitis, Legionella, cancer. Select the two images in which the worker is correctly protecting themselves from possible cuts or abrasions. Carrying with no gloves. Washing no gloves. Scraping with gloves. Scrubbing no gloves. Painting with gloves.
Which animal is the most likely carrier of Weil's disease, Leptospirosis, on construction sites? Rabbits, rats, squirrels, cats. If your doctor says that you contracted Weil's disease, Leptospirosis, on site, why do you need to tell your employer? Your employer has to warn your colleagues not to go near you. It must be reported to the Health and Safety Executive, HSE. Your employer will need to call pest control to remove rats on site. The site on which you contracted it will have to be closed down.
In what situation are you most likely to catch Weil's disease, Leptospirosis? If you work near wet ground, waterways or sewers. If you work near air conditioning units. If you work fixing showers or baths. If you drink water from a standpipe. What other illness can be easily confused with the early signs of Weil's disease, Leptospirosis? Dermatitis, diabetes, hay fever, influenza, flu.
Fatigue could affect work rates of a worker. What does this mean? They will be able to work faster as they will have lots of energy. They will work consistently as there are no issues. They will work at the same rate but will need monitoring. They will work more slowly as they will feel tired. What type of work is most likely to result in fatigue? New and challenging, repetitive and monotonous, exciting and enjoyable, quiet and interesting. Being satisfied with your job can lead to what? Feeling less stressed at work, feeling unpopular at work, feeling more stressed at work, feeling less happy at work. Which one of the following is most likely to cause stress at work? Job satisfaction but fear of redundancy. A lack of job security and fear of redundancy. Job security and a permanent contract. A lack of job security but a permanent contract. How can physical stress of a job be reduced? Repetitive actions when working, job rotation and task variation, making equipment challenging to use, an increase in pay for the same job. If a worker is feeling symptoms or showing signs of stress at work, what should they do? Speak to someone they trust, like a friend or someone independent. Arrive and start work at a later time. Tell the rest of the team about their problems. Eat or drink more during the day. Which statement about mental health is true? It always has an obvious cause. It can have no obvious cause. It is always caused by stress. It is never caused by stress. Who has a duty to protect an individual from stress at work? The union, the government, the local authority, the employer. What is the organisation The Samaritans? A charity that provides emotional support for people who are struggling to cope. A political party which supports looking after vulnerable people. A trade union organisation offering financial and legal support. A charity offering construction training to young, vulnerable people. Loss of appetite, fatigue, and tearfulness are common symptoms of what? Mental health issues or stress. Hand-arm vibration syndrome. Repetitive strain injury and back pain. Skin problems such as dermatitis. Which one of the following statements about mental health is true? Mental and physical health are directly linked. Mental health is all about our intelligence. Mental health has to do with our general knowledge. Mental health is all about how we think and remember things. Which one of the following statements is true? People experiencing mental health problems tend to be violent or dangerous. Mental health problems are common and can happen to anyone. Learning difficulties and mental health problems are the same. Mental health problems are rare among construction workers. Which one of the following is good advice for helping to cope with stress? Get enough rest. Drink more alcohol. Work longer hours. Keep it to yourself. A worker is suffering stress caused by their line manager, What should they do? Get another job that will be less demanding. Try to work faster to keep the manager happy. Find and follow the company procedures to address it. Complain to their manager. Which one of the following is true of the symptoms of stress? They are the same for everybody. They can be different for each individual. They always develop very quickly. They take a while to develop. Mind is a charity that does what? Provides advice and support to empower anyone experiencing a mental health problem. Provides housing for retired construction workers. Represents people who are very intelligent and want to improve their IQ. Controls and monitors health and safety in the workplace.
What sort of rest area should your employer provide on site? A canteen serving food, drinks, and cold sandwiches. A covered area with some comfortable chairs and running water. A covered area, chairs, and a way to boil water and heat food. Employers don't have to provide rest areas, as long as rest breaks are provided.
Which one of the following must be provided on site? Snacks, drinking water, free transport home, breakfast. Rest areas on site should be equipped with which of the following? Settees and chairs, televisions and tables, seating and radio, seating and tables.
How can everyone on site help keep rats away? Put rat traps and poison around the site. Ask the local authority to put down rat poison. Throw food scraps over the fence or hoarding. Put all food and drink rubbish into bins provided.
Which of the following is true of clearing waste to maintain a tidy site? Clearing waste should be carried out at the end of a shift. Construction workers are not responsible for clearing waste. Construction sites are dirty anyway and do not need clearing. Clearing waste should be a continuous process. When absorption granules from a spill kit have been used on oil, what action should be taken? Clear them up and place them in a sealed waste bag ready for specialist disposal. Leave them on the oil for a few days before clearing it into the general waste. Clear them up straight away and put them into a general waste skip. Use water to help clean up excess oil before specialist disposal. When should an oil spill be cleaned up? At the end of the shift. When it has dried. Never. It will be absorbed into the ground. Immediately. It could cause someone to slip.
What is the most important reason for keeping your work area clean and tidy? To help prevent slips, trips and falls. It saves time cleaning up at the end of the week, so that waste skips can be emptied more often. To recycle waste and help the environment.
A worker creates offcuts on site. Who is responsible for clearing them away? The worker, the supervisor, the site manager, the foreman. The ground has become muddy on site. What could be done to prevent the ground becoming slippery? Treat the surface with salt. Treat the surface with gravel. Improve lighting. Improve signage. A work task results in cables from power tools running across a walkway. What action should be taken? While working, look out for anyone approaching to warn them. Think about cancelling the job because it is too dangerous. Consider using cordless tools or running the cables at high level. Put up signs that the fire escape is out of order temporarily. Fatigue may be a result of what? Good work-life balance, good sleeping patterns, a healthy diet, working long hours. What would be a good way of reducing fatigue in the workforce? Regular start and finish times, early start times and a late finish, rotating shift patterns, random start and finish times. What can help to reduce fatigue? Going to the gym less, taking regular breaks at work, drinking alcohol after work, eating larger meals during break times. If a worker is feeling stressed, when is the best time for them to address the issue? When they have finished work and they are away from the workplace. As soon as they realise they have symptoms of stress. Only after the stress level gets so bad it causes an accident. In about 6 months, if the issue is still causing them stress. What is the best way for a worker to avoid becoming stressed because of an overload of work? Speak openly and regularly with their manager or employer about workloads. Put up with the extra work, but make sure overtime is paid. Only do what is manageable because someone else will pick up the extra. Make sure they take medication before going to work.
What is one sign that employees are feeling stressed at work? Increased productivity on site. Fewer accidents on site. Long-term staff retention rates. High staff turnover rates. Which of the following can be an indicator of stress? Inability to deal with usual workload. Increased productivity. Feeling valued at work. Feelings of confidence at work. Which of the following are common mental health issues? Paralysis and halitosis. Hand-arm vibration syndrome. Depression and anxiety. Dermatitis, skin irritation. If a worker confides in a colleague that they have suffered from a mental health issue, what should the colleague do? Let other colleagues know so they can avoid working with them. Treat them as they would any other work colleague. Inform the site supervisor and first aider. Do their work for them because they might not be able to cope. When might people suffering with mental health issues need help at work? When their site supervisor or manager says so. They will regularly need help to avoid them having a panic attack. Up to once a week to take some of the strain off them. As and when a situation arises in which help is needed. Lone workers are most at risk from what? Violence, paranoia, sleeplessness, Humiliation. Who should drive company vehicles? Anyone with a learner driver permit. Any employee who is competent and authorised. Any construction site manager or supervisor. Any junior apprentice workers. A worker with a full UK driving licence has been asked to move a machine they have never been trained on. What should the worker do? They can move the machine as they have a full UK driver's licence. Move the machine as long as there is no one else near it. Explain that they are not trained and competent to move it. Move the machine as long as there is a vehicle marshaller. Using a wheelbarrow or other lifting aids to move heavy loads is classed as manual handling, but they help to reduce the risk of personal injury. Adopting safe manual handling techniques will help to protect your back and reduce the risk of injury in the workplace. Workers should be trained in safe lifting techniques before manual handling or lifting. The manual handling acronym, TILE, stands for Task, Individual, Load, Environment. Your new job involves some manual handling, but an old injury means that you have a weak back. What should you do? Tell your supervisor you can lift anything on site. Tell your supervisor that lifting might be a problem. Try some lifting, then tell your supervisor about your back. Tell your supervisor about your back if it gets injured again. You need to move a load that might be too heavy for you. You cannot divide it into smaller parts and there is no one to help you. What should you do? Try to lift it using the correct lifting methods. Lift and move the load quickly to avoid injury. Do not move the load until you have a safe way of doing it. Get a forklift truck, even though you have not been trained to use it. You need to lift a load that is not heavy, but it is so big that you cannot see in front of you. What should you do? Get someone to walk next to you and give directions. Ask someone to help carry the load so that you can both see ahead. Get someone to walk in front of you and tell others to get out of the way. Move the load on your own. It is so large that anyone in your way is sure to see it. What should you do if you need to carry a load down a steep slope? Carry the load on your shoulder. Assess whether you can still carry the load safely. Walk backwards down the slope to help you balance. Put the load down and let gravity move it down the slope. What are 2 risks of carrying a load in cold, damp conditions? The load will be easier to carry. The route you take could be slippery. You will need to work more quickly to warm up. The load will feel lighter due to the cold conditions. Your ability to carry the load safely will be reduced. What should you do if you have been told how to lift a heavy load, but you think there is a better way to do it? Discuss your idea with your supervisor before lifting. Ignore what you have been told and do it your way. Forget your idea and do it the way you have been told. Ask your workmates to decide which way you should do it. What does it mean if you have to twist or turn your body when you lift and place a load? You must wear a back brace in this situation. You will be able to lift the same weight as usual. The weight you can lift safely will be less than usual. The weight you can lift safely will be more than usual. If you need to reach above your head to place a load or lower a load to the floor, which of these is not true? The load will be more difficult to control. You can safely handle more weight than usual. It will be more difficult to keep your back straight. You will put extra stress on your arms and your back.
If you have to move a load while you are sitting down, how much can you lift safely? Less than the usual amount. The usual amount. Twice the usual amount. 3 times the usual amount. Which part of the body is most likely to be injured when lifting heavy loads? Which part of the body is most likely to be injured when lifting heavy loads? Knees, back, shoulders, feet.
What is the outcome of wearing a back support belt when lifting? You can safely lift more than usual. You could face the same risk of injury. You can lift any load without being injured. You will crush your backbone and damage it. Which 3 of the following factors must you think about to lift a load safely? Its weight, its size and shape, what the value of it is, how to grip or hold it firmly, whether the contents are insured. What 2 things are important for the use of manual handling lifting aids? The user must hold a CSCS card. The lifting aid can only be used outside. The lifting aid must be designed for the task. Lifting aids must not be more than 6 months old. Users must be trained in the correct use of the lifting aid. You need to move a load that might be too heavy for you. What 3 methods could you use? Ask someone to help you. Drag the load to avoid lifting it. Use an aid, such as a trolley or wheelbarrow. Divide the load into smaller loads if possible. Test the load's weight by picking it up for a short time. What must all workers do under the regulations for manual handling? Follow their employer's safe systems of work. Wear back support belts when lifting things at work. Make a list of all the heavy things they have to carry. Lift any size of load once the risk assessment has been done.
If you need to move a load that is heavier on one side than the other, how should you pick it up? With the heavy side towards you. With the heavy side away from you. With the heavy side on your strong arm. With the heavy side on your weak arm.
Which of the following is the best method to help minimize the risk of injury when moving loads on site? Ask a trained person to carry the load. Use lifting aids wherever possible on site. Make the area flatter before performing the task. Remove all awkward-shaped loads from the site. A wheel comes off a trolley you are using to move a heavy load a long distance. What should you do? Carry the load for the rest of the journey. Drag the trolley on your own for the rest of the journey. Find another way to move the load and complete the journey. Ask someone to help you pull the trolley for the rest of the journey.
Who should be involved in planning the safe system of work for your manual handling? You and your colleagues. Your supervisor or employer. You and your supervisor or employer. The Health and Safety Executive, HSE.
If you are required to lift a heavy load, what must your employer do? Watch you while you lift the load. Complete a risk assessment of the task. Nothing. Lifting loads is a part of your job. Make sure that a supervisor is there to advise you while you lift. Which one of the following could cause back and musculoskeletal problems for a worker? Positioning materials away from the work area. Good planning to reduce lifting heavy loads. Reducing the maximum lifting weight. Using machines for lifting operations whenever possible. Prohibition signs must not do red and white. No access for pedestrians. No admittance, authorised personnel only. No mobile phones. No naked flames. No smoking. Not drinkable. Do not touch. Mandatory signs must do blue and white. Safety gloves must be worn. Safety boots or shoes must be worn. Safety harness must be worn. Safety helmet must be worn. Protective eyewear must be worn. Hearing protection must be worn. General mandatory sign. Warning signs: yellow and black. Slippery surface. Toxic material. Trip hazard. Combustible or flammable material. Corrosive material. High voltage. Industrial vehicles operating. Radioactive material or ionizing radiation. Explosive material. General warning sign. Overhead load. Safe condition. Green and white. Emergency assembly point. Emergency escape route. Emergency eye wash. Emergency shower. First aid. Firefighting signs. Fire emergency telephone. Fire extinguisher. Firefighting equipment. Fire hose reel. Fire ladder. Fire alarm call point. Globally harmonized pictograms are used to help identify hazardous substances, hazardous to the environment and aquatic life, oxidizing gases, liquids and solids, damage to organs. Heating may cause an explosion, corrosive, flammable gases, harmful, skin, eye or respiratory irritation, contains gases under pressure, toxic. Which image shows the worker correctly following these site safety signs?
Which three of the following should be labelled with this sign? Asbestos waste. Raw asbestos. Any product containing asbestos. Plasterboard waste. Recyclable waste.
How should a container or any residue be disposed of if it has this sign on the label or packaging? Put it in any type of skip or bin. Leave it somewhere for other people to deal with. If it is a liquid and less than 1 litre, you can pour it down a drain. Follow specific instructions on the label and in the work instructions. Emergency procedures should be in place before any work begins, explained in the site induction, and not changed without notice. Everyone on site should be aware of the emergency procedures, as these help to control dangerous situations. Emergency escape routes should be kept clear and unobstructed at all times. A fire assembly point is where people must go when the fire alarm sounds. Hot work permits authorise tasks to be carried out safely under strictly controlled conditions. Hot work permits allow workers to carry out work that could start a fire, such as cutting steel with an angle grinder or soldering pipework in a central heating system. Liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, is colourless, has a distinctive smell and is highly flammable. A leaking LPG cylinder can catch fire at some distance from the original leak and flash back to the source. If a cylinder of LPG is leaking, turn the supply off immediately if it is safe to do so. Fuel should always be dispensed using the correct nozzle and stored in the designated fuel store when not being used. Refuelling should only be carried out by authorised people, when the equipment is turned off and cooled down for safety.
What are two common fire risks on construction sites? 230-volt power tools, poor housekeeping and build-up of waste, timber racks, uncontrolled hot works, 110-volt extension reels.
In addition to heat, what are the other two factors that must be present to start a fire? Nitrogen, carbon dioxide, argon, oxygen, fuel. What must be checked before working in a corridor that is a fire escape route? If the tools being used are spark-proof. If the doors into the corridor are locked. That any tools and equipment do not block the route. That fire escape signs are removed before the work starts. If you discover a fire, what is the first thing that you should do? Raise the alarm. Put your tools away. Try to put out the fire. Finish what you are doing.
A large fire has been reported. You have not been trained to use fire extinguishers. What should you do? Put away all your tools and then go to the assembly point. Report to the site office and then go home. Go straight to the assembly point. Leave work for the day.
Which emergency procedures should be explained in the site induction? Give 3 answers. How to raise the alarm in case of an emergency. Where to go if the fire alarm is activated. Where to go to leave valuables in an emergency. What to do if someone is injured on site. How to avoid leaving site in case it's a false alarm. If a fire occurs, how should you interact with the designated fire warden? Follow the instructions given by the fire warden. Ignore the fire warden and follow your colleagues. Follow the site manager as they will know their way around the site. Ignore the fire warden and the site manager. What additional rules might a person working alone be asked to follow? Carry 2 sets of personal protective equipment, PPE. Complete an additional timesheet. Never speak to the general public. Make regular radio or mobile phone contact. If your job needs a hot work permit, what 2 things would you expect to have to do? Write a site evacuation plan. Know how to refill fire extinguishers. Check for signs of fire when you stop work. Have a fire extinguisher close to the work. Know where all the fire extinguishers are kept on site. You are about to start a job. How will you know if you need a permit to work? The Health and Safety Executive, HSE, will give them out. Permits to work are only required by managers on large sites. Information will be given during the site induction before any work starts. Other workers on site will pass them on after they have finished with them. What does it mean if there is frost around the valve on a liquefied petroleum gas (LPG) cylinder? The cylinder is full. The valve is leaking. The cylinder is nearly empty. You must lay the cylinder on its side.
Which two extinguishers should not be used on electrical fires? Dry powder, blue colour band. Foam, cream colour band. Water, red colour band. Carbon dioxide, black colour band.
Match the fire extinguisher with the described contents. Water for use on wood, paper, textile and solid material fires. Powder for use on liquid and electrical fires. Foam for use on liquid fires. Carbon dioxide, CO2, for use on liquid and electrical fires. What is the primary purpose of fire extinguishers? To tackle small fires to prevent them becoming larger. To be available and ready for when the fire services arrive. To make sure the premises pass a safety inspection. To add decoration to the walls of the construction site. A worker needs to use a flammable liquid. How much should be taken from the store? Enough to carry out the immediate activity. No more than the manual handling rules allow. Enough to last a month, but inform the site manager. Enough to last a week to save time going to the store. You see a driver refuelling an excavator, but most of the diesel is spilling onto the ground. What is the first thing that you should do? Tell the driver immediately and locate the spill kit. Tell your supervisor the next time that you see them. Look around for a spill kit and then tell your supervisor. Do nothing. The diesel will eventually seep into the ground. A worker spills a large quantity of petrol on their clothes when refueling a piece of equipment. What should they do? Put some other clothes on top. Change their clothes immediately. Nothing. It will evaporate quickly. Wipe it off with a cloth. A worker spills a large quantity of petrol when refueling a dumper. What should they do? Stop, notify, contain. Stop, contain, notify. Contain, stop, notify. Notify, contain, stop. Workers must be trained and competent before operating power tools. Cartridge-operated tools operate like a gun and can be dangerous in inexperienced hands. The main function of guards on cutting and grinding machines is to stop fragments flying into the air and to prevent the operator coming into contact with the blade or wheel. The recommended maximum voltage for construction sites is 110 volt with a yellow connector. Residual current devices, RCDs, should be fitted between the plug of a 230 volt tool and the supply socket. RCDs work by cutting the power quickly if there is a fault, and should be mechanical, trip tested before each use. You need to work near an electric cable, but the cable has bare wires. What should you do? Quickly touch the cable to see if it is live. Tell your supervisor and keep well away from the cable. Push the cable out of the way so that you can start work. Check there are no sparks coming from the cable and then start work. You are using a generator to power some lighting when a lamp blows. You have a spare lamp. What should you do? Carry on working in the dark. Replace the lamp without disconnecting the generator. Wait for a fully qualified electrician with a NIC/EIC card. Disconnect the lighting from the generator before replacing the lamp. What are the two main visual inspections you should carry out before using a power tool? Make sure the carry case isn't broken. Check it is marked with a security stamp. Make sure the manufacturer's label hasn't come off. Check the power lead, plug and casing are in good condition. Check switches, triggers, and make sure the guards are adjusted and work correctly. What is best practice when using a power tool with a rotating blade? Adjust the guard to expose the maximum amount of blade. Remove the guard so that you can clearly see the blade. Remove the guard, but wear leather gloves to protect your hands. Adjust the guard to expose just enough blade to let you do the job. What should be done before adjusting an electric hand tool? Switch it off, but leave the plug in the socket. Put tape over the power switch before adjusting. Switch it off and remove the plug from the socket. You should never adjust an electric hand tool yourself.
You have been asked to use a hand tool or power tool on site. You know that it is the right tool for the job. What else must you check? That it was made in the UK. That it is inspected at the start of each week. That it was bought from a builder's merchant. That it is inspected before you use it.
Why is it considered poor practice to store batteries loose in a tool bag? You might forget to charge them. If the terminals short out, they could cause a fire. They give off a poisonous gas in a confined space. The tool bag will be heavy and could damage your back. When is it safe to work close to an overhead power line? If the power is switched off. If you use a wooden ladder for access. If it is not raining whilst you are working. If you do not touch the line for more than 30 seconds. What should you do if the guard is missing from a power tool? Try to make another guard. Use the tool, but try to work quickly. Use the tool, but work carefully and slowly. Do not use the tool until a proper guard has been fitted.
What should you do if the electrical equipment you are using cuts out? Shake it to see if it will start again. Pull the electric cable to see if it is loose. Switch the power off and on a few times. Switch off the power and look for signs of damage.
Why should a residual current device, RCD, be used with 230-volt tools? It saves energy and lowers costs. It lowers the voltage automatically. It makes the tool run at a safe speed. It quickly cuts off the power if there is a fault. Which method is used to check if a residual current device, RCD, connected to a power tool is working? Switch the tool on and off. Press the test button on the RCD. Use a handheld RCD test meter. Run the tool at top speed to see if it cuts out. You need to use a 230-volt item of equipment. How should you protect yourself from an electric shock? Wear rubber boots and gloves. Put up safety screens around you. Use a generator which has been serviced. Use a portable residual current device, RCD. Why are battery-powered tools preferred over 110-volt tools in a construction environment? They are cheaper to run. They are quieter. They are more powerful. They are safer. What is the main advantage of using battery-powered tools rather than electrical ones? They are cheaper to run. They will not give you hand-arm vibration. They do not need to be tested or serviced. They will not give you a serious electric shock. Why do building sites use a 110-volt electricity supply instead of a 230-volt supply? It is cheaper. It is less likely to kill you. It is safer for the environment. It moves faster along the cables.
What 2 things should you do to reduce trips and injuries caused by untidy leads and extension cables? Run cables and leads above head height and over the top of doorways and walkways. Tie any excess cables and leads up into the smallest coil possible. Keep trailing cables and leads close to the wall. Make sure your cables have not been used before. Only use thinner 230-volt extension cables. What 2 things should you do if you need to run an electrical cable across an area used by vehicles? Wrap the cable in yellow tape so that drivers can see it. Cover the cable with a protective ramp. Cover the cable with scaffold boards. Put up a sign that says ramp ahead. Run the cable at head height.
What 2 things should you do if you need to use an extension cable? Uncoil the whole cable. Clean the cable with a damp cloth. Only uncoil the length of cable you need. Check the whole cable and connectors for damage. Only check the part of the cable you need for damage.
What is the best way to protect an extension cable and also reduce trip hazards? Run the cable above head height. Run the cable by the shortest route. Cover the cable with yellow tape. Cover the cable with pieces of wood.
What should you do if an extension cable has a cut in its outer cover? Put a bigger fuse in the cable plug. Put electrical tape around the damaged part. Report the fault and make sure that no one else uses the cable. Check the copper wires aren't showing in the cut and then use the cable. Apart from dust, vibration, noise and flying fragments, identify another significant hazard in this image. What should you do if the head on your hammer becomes loose? Stop work and get the hammer repaired or replaced. Find another heavy tool to use instead of the hammer. Tell the other people near you to keep out of the way. Keep using it, but be aware that the head could come off at any time.
Which item of equipment would not require portable appliance testing? PAT. 110-volt transformer. Hammer and bolster. 110-volt extension lead. Plug-in breaker.
Do simple hand tools like trowels, screwdrivers, saws and hammers need to be inspected? No, it is not necessary to check such tools. Only if someone else has borrowed the tools. Yes, the tools should be checked each time they are used. Only if the tools have not been used for a few weeks. What is the main danger when using a chisel or bolster with a mushroomed head? It will shatter and send fragments flying into the air. You are more likely to hit your hand with the chisel head. The hammer could slip off the head of the bolster or chisel. The shaft of the chisel will bend, putting a strain on your wrist.
When do you need to check tools and equipment for damage? Each time before use? Every day? Once a week? At least once a year?
If a power tool has a portable appliance testing PAT label on it, what information should be included on the label? When the tool was made. When the tool was last tested. The tool's earth loop impedance. Who tested the tool before it left the factory? Which item of equipment would not require portable appliance testing, PAT? 110-volt transformer. Battery-powered rechargeable drill. 110-volt extension lead. Plug-in portable halogen light. You have been asked to dig to expose power cables. You have been given a cable avoidance tool, CAT, to detect them. But you haven't been shown how to use it. What should you do? Read the manual before you start work. Ask a colleague to show you how to use it. Tell your supervisor that you haven't been trained. Dig the hole without using the cable avoidance tool. You need to use an air-powered tool. What 3 hazards are likely to affect you? Radiation, being struck by a poorly secured hose, an electric shock, hand-arm vibration, airborne dust and flying fragments.
If someone near you is using a petrol cut-off saw, disc cutter to cut concrete blocks, what 3 immediate hazards are likely to affect you? Flying fragments, contact dermatitis, harmful dust in the air, high noise levels, vibration white finger. What does it mean if the equipment you are using is issued with a prohibition notice? You must not use it unless your supervisor is present. You must not use it until it is made safe. You can use it as long as you take more care. Only supervisors can use it until further notice.
Which 2 of the following statements about power tools are true? You should always carry the tool by its cord. A power tool should be unplugged by pulling its cord. You must be trained and competent to use any power tool. You should always unplug the tool when you are not using it. Power tools should always be left plugged in when you check or adjust them.
Why is it dangerous to run an abrasive wheel faster than its recommended maximum speed? The wheel will get clogged and stop. The motor could burst into flames. The wheel could shatter into many pieces. The safety guard cannot be used.
People being struck by moving plant is one of the most common causes of injury and death on construction sites. You should be provided with information about site traffic rules in your site induction. Well-organised sites will have segregated vehicle and pedestrian routes. Vehicle marshals should be used to control and ensure safe vehicle movements on site. You must be trained, competent and authorised to operate or signal plant on any site. Loading and storage areas on site should be located away from main pedestrian routes. Poor ground conditions, excessive speed, and poorly distributed loads will increase the risk of a vehicle overturning. One of the most common accidents involving dumpers is overturning. You are walking on site and a large mobile crane reverses across your path. What should you do? Help the driver to reverse. Pass close to the front of the crane. Wait or find another way around the crane. Start to run so that you can pass behind the reversing crane. What should you do if you need to walk past someone operating a mobile crane? Run to get past the crane quickly. Try to catch the attention of the crane operator. Take another route so that you stay clear of the crane. Guess what the crane operator will do next and squeeze past. When is a site vehicle most likely to injure pedestrians? When it is reversing. While digging out footings. While tipping into an excavation. As it is lifting materials onto scaffolds. Why should you not walk behind a lorry when it is reversing? Most lorries are not fitted with mirrors. The driver is unlikely to know you are there. Most lorry drivers aren't very good at reversing. You will need to run, not walk, to get past it in time.
The quickest way to your work area is through a contractor's vehicle compound. Which way should you go? Around the compound if vehicles are moving. Straight through the compound if no vehicles appear to be moving. Around the compound every time. Straight through the compound if no one is looking. When is site transport allowed to drive along a pedestrian route? During meal breaks? If it is the shortest route? Only if necessary and if all pedestrians are excluded? Only if the vehicle has a flashing yellow light? When you walk across the site, what is the best way to avoid an accident with mobile plant? Keep to the designated pedestrian routes. Ride on the plant. Get the attention of the driver before you get too close. Wear high-vis clothing.
You need to walk past a 360-degree mobile crane. The crane is operating near a wall. What is the main danger? The crane could crash into the wall. You could be crushed if you walk between the crane and the wall. You could get whole-body vibration from the crane. Your hearing could be damaged by high noise levels from the crane.
A forklift truck is blocking the route you need to take on site. It is lifting materials onto a scaffold. What should you do? Start to run so that you are not under the load for very long. Wait or take another route, but never walk under a raised load. Catch the driver's attention and then walk under the raised load. Only walk under the raised load if you are wearing a safety helmet. Which action should a worker take if they see mobile plant using a route intended only for pedestrians? Nothing. The driver will know what they are doing. Report this to their supervisor. Have a word with the operator at the end of the day. Just be careful in that area. Workers are on foot close to moving plant. Which one of the following is true? High-vis clothing will keep the workers safe if the plant is not reversing. The operator will see the workers because they have mirrors and CCTV. The workers should stay within the designated pedestrian routes. The workers will be safe if they're in a group. Which of the following signs means no pedestrian access? In which one of the following situations is it safer for a worker to speak to someone operating mobile plant? The operator knows the worker is there and the plant has stopped operating. The worker is wearing high-vis and the plant is moving slowly. The operator can hear the worker and it is daytime. The worker is wearing PPE and the plant is moving slowly. What should you do if you see a dumper being driven too fast? Report it to the police. Keep out of its way and report it. Try to catch the dumper and speak to the driver. Nothing, as dumpers are allowed to speed. What is the main hazard associated with the movement of plant and machinery around site? Pedestrians walking too close to moving machinery and being crushed. Existing building collapse from vibrations of the moving machinery. Members of the public being poisoned by the exhaust fumes. Drivers getting motion sickness from the movement of the machine. What is the meaning of this sign? Pedestrian walkway only. No pedestrian access. Traffic approaching from each direction. Go slow. When moving plant or machinery around site, what should the operator look out for? Driving with the handbrake on. Driving with the lights on during the day. Speed signs and speed humps. Only driving with limited fuel. Where vehicles tip materials into excavations, what could be used as a safety precaution? Stop blocks. Extra speakers. Flashing lights. A siren. Why should engines be turned off before leaving a site vehicle? Select 2 answers. Leaving the engine running is a waste of fuel and is therefore a waste of construction budget. Members of the public are likely to jump into the vehicle and steal it. The sound of the engine may give other workers a headache if left on for too long. Drivers may accidentally operate levers when climbing into or out of the vehicle. Construction machines are not designed to be constantly left running. If there are blind spots while using plant but work needs to continue, what actions should be taken? Use the existing mirrors on the plant. Request the plant be fitted with CCTV cameras. Use a vehicle marshal for this type of work. Work with a slinger. Your supervisor asks you to drive a dumper truck, but you have not driven one before. What should you do? Ask a trained driver how to operate it safely. Watch other dumpers to see how they are operated. Operate the dumper in an open area in case you make a mistake. Tell your supervisor that you are not trained and so cannot operate it. Which of the following is a recognized control measure when reversing a vehicle? Turning the site radio off. Using a vehicle marshal. Turning on all the vehicle lights. Standing on the back to direct it.
You think a load is about to fall from a moving forklift truck. What should you do? Keep clear, but try to warn the driver and others in the area. Run alongside the machine and try to hold on to the load. Run and tell your supervisor. Sound the nearest fire alarm bell.
When can a mobile plant operator let people ride in or on the machine? Only if they have a long way to walk. Anytime, as long as the cab door is shut. Anytime, as long as the site speed limit is not exceeded. Only if it is designed to carry passengers and has a designated seat. You see a lorry parking and it has a flat tyre. Why should you tell the driver? More fuel will be used by the lorry. It could be unsafe to drive the lorry. The lorry can only carry small loads. The driver will need to travel at a much slower speed.
An excavator has just stopped work. Liquid is dripping and forming a small pool under the back of the machine. What could this mean? It is normal for fluids to vent after the machine stops. The machine is hot, so the diesel has expanded and overflowed. Someone put too much diesel into the machine before it started work. The machine has a leak and could be unsafe.
A mobile crane is lifting a load, but the load is about to hit something. What should you do? Go and tell your supervisor. Go and tell the crane driver. Try and warn the person supervising or signalling the lift. Do nothing and assume that everything is under control. Which signal is being shown in this image? Danger, emergency stop. Move forwards. Turn right or left. Move backwards. What is needed before supervising any lift using a crane? A mobile phone to talk to the crane driver. Full training and being assessed as competent. Written instructions from the crane hire company. Nothing. The crane driver will tell you what to do. Which of the following is a way of ensuring that a slinger or signaller is trained and competent? By trusting them when they say they are. By asking for evidence to be produced. By having them swear an affidavit. By making a handshake agreement. Which action will help to keep signallers safe? Provide yearly eye tests to confirm they have good vision. Provide body cameras to capture any incidents. Provide gloves for hand signals. Provide high-vis clothing so they are clearly visible. Under what circumstance should a driver stop their vehicle immediately? If the vehicle is low on fuel. If the flashing beacon has stopped working. If they lose sight of their vehicle marshal. If they are operating in a one-way system. When signallers are used, who should they be in contact with at all times? The machine operator, the site manager, their supervisor, pedestrians. What is the most important information a vehicle marshaller should know before directing a vehicle? How to signal vehicles and any relevant safety procedures. The type of materials being delivered to the site. The name and address of the driver for security reasons. The value of the materials as they could be stolen. To reduce the risk of overturning and accidents when not in use, how should earth-moving vehicles be parked? With their buckets and blades raised in the air. With their buckets and blades facing the same way. With their buckets and blades lowered to the ground. With the buckets and blades facing opposite directions. Where risk of overturning is significant, what should vehicles be fitted with? Extra strength brakes. Rollover protective structures. ROPS. Heavy-duty graded tyres. A winch and pulley system. To prevent overturning, when should rear tipping lorries not be used for tipping operations? When on firm, level ground. On uneven or sloping ground. When a competent signaller is supervising. During redistribution of the load. Work at height is defined as work at any height where a person could fall and be injured. Every year, falls from height kill more construction workers than any other type of accident. Work at height should be avoided where possible. All equipment for working at height should be inspected before use. If you are involved in work at height, your employer should ensure that you have sufficient information, instruction and equipment so that you can work safely. There should always be a rescue plan if people are working at height. If you feel that the task you are completing at height is unsafe, stop work and report it to your supervisor. It would be classed as working at height if you were standing on the back of a lorry during loading or unloading activities. One of the leading causes of injury on construction sites is as a result of workers being struck by falling objects. Do not attempt to erect, alter, or dismantle a mobile access tower unless you have been trained and you are authorised to do so. Make sure that there are no people, tools, or equipment on a mobile access tower before you attempt to move it. The erection, alteration, inspection, and dismantling of scaffolding should only be carried out by trained and authorised persons. Personal fall arrest equipment is designed to minimise the consequences if a fall occurs and will only protect an individual worker. All roofs should be treated as fragile until a competent person has confirmed they are not. Safe access and a safe working platform should be provided for all work on fragile roofs. Where should vehicles be loaded and unloaded? On an upward slope. On level ground. On a downward slope. On uneven ground. What is the purpose of a one-way system at a loading or unloading area? To eliminate the need to reverse. To allow faster speed limits. To reduce the speed limits. To increase the need to reverse. Accidents on site are often caused by materials falling from vehicles during what process? Refueling, repainting, cleaning, unloading.
What should you do if you find a ladder that is damaged? Don't use it and make sure that others know about the damage. Don't use it and report the damage at the end of your shift. Try to mend the damage before using it. Use it if you can avoid the damaged part.
Which image shows the safest method for using a stepladder?
Which image shows the safe use of a ladder? What angle should a leaning ladder be used at?
According to the work at height regulations, when can ladders be used for work? If it is high-risk work for long periods of time. A ladder must never be used on site. If it is low-risk work for a short period of time. When other people do not need to use it for access. Who should check a ladder before it is used? The site manager, the manufacturer, a site safety officer, the person who is going to use it. What is the best way to make sure that a ladder is secure and will not slip? Secure it at the top. Secure it at the bottom. Wedge the bottom of the ladder with blocks of wood. Ask someone to stand with their foot on the bottom rung. What is the correct way to climb a ladder? By having 2 people on the ladder at all times. Only using the ladder when wearing a safety harness. Having 2 points of contact with the ladder at all times. Having 3 points of contact with the ladder at all times. How many people are allowed on a ladder at the same time? Only 1 person. A maximum of 2 people. 3 people, if it is long enough. 1 person on each section of an extension ladder. Which one of the following is not true when using podium steps? Podium steps are safe and can't topple over. Podium steps should be inspected before use. Podium step wheels must be locked before you get on. Podium steps can easily topple if you overreach sideways. Which of these statements is true about using a ladder to access a scaffold platform? All broken rungs must be clearly marked. 2 people must be on the ladder at all times. It must be wedged at the bottom to stop it slipping. It must be secured and extend at least 1 metre above the platform.
What should you do if you need to use a mobile access tower but the brakes don't work? Use some wood to wedge the wheels and stop them moving. Do not use the tower. Only use the tower if the floor is level. Get someone to hold the tower while you use it.
What is the correct way to reach the working platform of a mobile access tower? Climb up the ladder built into the tower. Climb up the outside of the diagonal bracing. Lean a ladder against the tower and climb up that. Climb up the tower frame on the outside of the tower.
A mobile access tower must not be used on what surface? Soft or uneven ground. A paved patio. An asphalt road. A smooth concrete path.
Which of the following is the safest method of accessing a mobile access tower? Climbing up the outside of the tower. Climbing a ladder inside the tower. Climbing a ladder outside of the tower. Climbing a rope on the outside of the tower. Which one of the following statements is true when referring to the wheels on mobile access towers? The wheels should be locked at all times. The wheels should be locked when the tower is in use. The wheels should be locked when the tower is being moved. The wheels should only be locked at the end of the day. Which one of the following is a safe way of moving a mobile access tower? Towing with a site vehicle with a tow rope attached to the base. Using manual effort, pushing only from the base. Using manual effort to pull from the top and the base. Towing with a site vehicle with a tow rope attached to the top. When assembling a mobile access tower near overhead electric cables, which one of the following statements is true? The cables can be treated as dead if the work is going to take less than 30 minutes. The cables must be treated as live until it is confirmed they are dead. The cables do not present a danger because mobile access towers are insulated. Personal protective equipment, PPE, will keep workers safe until it is confirmed that the cables are dead. When working at height in a mobile elevating work platform, MEWP, over or near to deep water, which item of personal protective equipment, PPE, should be worn? Wellington boots. Life jacket. Full face respirator. Full body harness. What should a harness's lanyard be attached to when working in a mobile elevating work platform, MEWP? The control box. The MEWP handrail. A point on the structure or building you are working on. A designated anchor point within the platform or basket. A worker has been asked to operate a mobile elevating work platform, MEWP, but has no training. What should they do? Get the work done as quickly as possible. Ask a workmate how to operate the MEWP. Tell their supervisor that they have no training. Operate the MEWP at break time when no one is around. A mobile elevating work platform, MEWP, must not be used on what surface? An asphalt road. A smooth concrete path. Soft or uneven ground. A concrete road. A worker is wearing a harness in a boom-type mobile elevating work platform, MEWP, sometimes known as a cherry picker. Which one of the following should the harness have? A work restraint lanyard clipped to an attachment point in the basket. A work restraint lanyard clipped to the handrail of the basket. A fall arrest lanyard clipped to the structure being worked on. A full restraint lanyard clipped to the control box of the machine. What does this symbol on a mobile elevating work platform, MEWP, show? The location of the lowering controls for use in emergency. The location of the points where workers can lean over the platform. The guardrail height. The safe method of exiting the platform. Which one of the following should a worker do if a mobile elevating work platform, MEWP, does not allow safe access to the place of work? Stand on the guardrails. Use a step ladder on the platform. Inform a supervisor that a larger MEWP is needed. Put pallets on the working platform.
What should you do if you are required to use access equipment that you have not been trained to use? Do the job if it won't take long. Get a ladder instead. Stop work and speak to your supervisor. Ask someone else to do it.
If you are working on a flat roof, what is the best way to stop yourself from falling over the edge? Use red and white tape to mark the edge. Put a large warning sign at the edge of the roof. Protect the edge with a guardrail and a tow board. Ask someone to watch you and shout when you get too close to the edge. Who should complete pre-use checks on ladders or other equipment used for working at height? The employer. The worker using the equipment. The supervisor. The site manager. Which two of the following statements are true about working on a roof? It is safe to try to walk near underlying roof supports. Wired glass roof panels are likely to be fragile. It is easy to see which roof surfaces are likely to be fragile. Workers should not work on a roof where there is no protection from falls. Asbestos and fibre cement roof sheets are unlikely to be fragile. What does the following sign mean? Fragile roof. Deep water. Safety boots must be worn. No running. A fragile roof needs to be repaired. Which of the following would be regarded as the safest method? Workers work from underneath using a mobile elevating working platform, MEWP. Workers access the roof by walking as close as possible to the underlying roof supports. Workers working on the roof wearing safety boots and helmets. Workers work from underneath using ladders and ropes for anchoring. Which one of the following statements is true of a person who has fallen and is suspended in a fall arrest harness? They will need to be rescued quickly. There will be no reason to call an ambulance. They will be safe in the harness for over an hour. They should be left to rescue themselves. Which one of the following statements is true of painting wooden ladders used in construction. Ladders should be painted orange to make them more visible. Ladders should never be painted as this could hide defects or damage. It is a good idea to paint ladders because this protects them. It is advisable to paint ladders to prevent them being stolen. A worker is storing materials above toe board height on a scaffold. How should people below be protected? Shout a warning to anyone passing below. Use string to secure the materials. Halt the work when people are approaching. Use a brick guard or suitable mesh netting. Under which one of the following circumstances is it safe for a worker to remove a protective cover from a deep service hole on site? The worker is wearing a safety helmet and waits until everyone else has left the site. The worker is authorised to do so and is protected from falling whilst the cover is not in place. The worker is wearing high-vis and has told a few people on site that the cover will be removed. The worker has placed a safety cone by the hole so people will avoid the area. What is the maximum length of time that a worker should work from a stepladder in one position? Less than 30 minutes. Less than 1 hour. Less than 90 minutes. Less than 2 hours. Which one of the statements about storing materials on a working platform is correct? Materials can be stored unsecured, but they must be above guardrail height. Materials do not need to be secured if they are going to be there for less than an hour. Materials can be stored anywhere, even if they pose a trip hazard or block the walkway. Materials must be stored so they can't fall, and the platform must be able to take their weight.
What is the best way to stop people being hit by falling tools and materials when you are working above them? Make sure they are wearing safety helmets. Tell them you will be working above them and erect signs. Exclude people from below the work area with fencing and signs. Only allow authorized people underneath the work area. If you need to stack materials on a working platform, what is the best way to stop them falling over the toe board? Have brick guards or netting fitted to the edge. Put a warning sign on the stack. Build the stack so that it leans away from the edge. Cover the stack with polythene.
To ensure the public is not put at risk from falling materials for the duration of work, what may be necessary? Pavement closure or diversion. Giving the public hard hats. Making pedestrians use the road. Giving the public high-vis clothing. If a person is struck by a falling object, what could be the negative consequence? They get fired. They get injured. They get a promotion. They get compensation. What piece of personal protective equipment, PPE, should be worn on sites where there is a risk of falling objects? Protective goggles. Hard hat. High-vis clothing. A safety harness. When is it safe to cross a fragile roof? Only when you can see fragile roof signs. Only if you do not walk on any plastic panels. When crawling boards with handrails are available to use. At any time, as long as you walk along the line of the bolts. What does this sign mean? Fragile roof. Take care when walking on roof surface. Load-bearing roof. The surface can be slippery when wet. Load-bearing roof. You can stand on the surface but not on any roof lights. Fragile roof. Use fall protection measures and do not stand directly on the roof.
What is the best way to stop people falling through voids, holes, or fragile roof panels? Tell everyone where the dangerous areas are. Place secure, load-bearing covers over the dangerous areas and add warning signage. Cover the dangerous areas with safety netting and tell everyone to be careful. Mark the dangerous areas with red and white warning tape.
A material that may hide fragile surfaces has been applied to a roof. What action should be taken? Nothing. The material applied should be fine. The fragile areas should be clearly marked and protected. Nothing. Workers should know to be careful. The fragile areas should be painted green. Which one of the following surfaces is not likely to be fragile? A reinforced concrete roof, a fibre cement sheet roof, a glass panel roof, a slate tiled roof. A scaffold guardrail must be removed to allow you to carry out a task. If you are not a scaffolder, can you remove the guardrail? Yes, if you put it back before you leave the site. Yes, if you put it back as soon as you have finished. No, only a scaffolder can remove the guardrail and put it back. No, only a scaffolder can remove the guardrail, but you can put it back. How can the safe load rating for a scaffold platform be identified? By asking the telehandler driver. By asking the principal contractor. Referring to the handover certificate or signage. The safe load is breached when the ledgers start to deflect. What should you do if you think that the scaffolding you are working from is not safe? Report it to your supervisor at the end of the shift. Try to make the repairs yourself and then report it to your supervisor. Report your concerns to your supervisor straight away. Ignore it and wait for the scaffolders to identify any problems.
What should you do if you notice your harness or attachment is damaged? Stop and tell your supervisor straight away. Use it and tell your supervisor at the end of the day. Use a colleague's harness instead. Stop and tell your supervisor, but carry on using it until it is replaced.
What is an inertia reel? A retractable fall arrestor. A horizontal fall arrestor. A pulley-operated fall arrestor. A rope-based fall arrestor. Which of the following best describes the purpose of personal fall prevention equipment? It is designed to prevent falls from occurring. It is designed to minimize the consequences if a fall occurs. It is designed to protect more than one person if a fall occurs. It is designed to be used in confined spaces only. When are personal fall arrest systems to be used? Only as a last resort. The majority of the time. In the morning. During a night shift. Who should know how to carry out pre-use checks on fall arrest equipment? The site managers. All workers who use it. All workers on site. The apprentice workers. Excavations should always have a safe means of access and egress, such as a secured ladder. Excavations should be inspected at the start of every shift or after events that might affect stability. The most accurate way to identify the location of buried services is through the use of trial holes. If you damage an underground service, stop work, do not touch anything, and report it. Permit systems are often used where people are working in confined spaces. There should always be a rescue plan if you are working in a confined space. If you are working in a confined space and the gas alarm sounds, get out immediately.
You are in a deep trench. A lorry backs up to the trench and the engine is left running. What should you do? Put on ear defenders to cut out the engine noise. Ignore the problem, as the lorry will soon drive away. See if there is a toxic gas meter in the trench. Get out of the trench quickly.
What should you do if you see the side supports move when you are working in an excavation? Work in another part of the excavation instead. Keep working and watch to see if they move again. Make sure that you and other workers get out quickly. Nothing. The sides are expected to move all the time. What is the main hazard when working in an excavation? Breathing in hazardous dust from the earth. Cuts and abrasions from the trench sides. Trips and falls due to the space restriction. Crushing if the sides are not supported.
When should an excavation be battered back or stepped? If it is more than 5 metres deep. If there is water in the bottom of the trench. If there is a risk of the sides falling in regardless of depth. If any buried services cross the excavation.
What do guardrails around the top of an excavation prevent? Toxic gases collecting in the bottom of the trench. People falling into the trench and being injured. The sides of the trench collapsing. Rainwater running off the ground at the top and into the trench. What is the safest way to get into and out of a deep excavation? Use an excavator bucket. Use the buried services as steps. Use the shoring or trench supports. Use a fixed staircase.
What equipment should be used when digging near to underground electrical services? An excavator. A jackhammer. A pick and fork. An insulated spade. What does it mean if a run of coloured marker tape is found when digging? The excavation now requires side supports. There are buried human remains, and you must tell your supervisor. There is a buried service, and further excavation must be carried out with care. The soil is contaminated, and you must wear Respiratory Protective Equipment, RPE.
According to the guidance on underground service pipes, what does a yellow service pipe carry? Water, gas, electricity, telecoms.
What 3 things should you do before entering a confined space that has sludge at the bottom? Identify what the sludge is. Have the correct training. Put on a disposable dust mask. Make sure that the space has been tested for gas. Throw something into the sludge to see how deep it is. What should you do if your permit to work in a confined space will run out before you finish the task you are carrying out? Hand the permit over to the next shift. Carry on working until the job is finished. Leave the confined space before the permit runs out. Ask your supervisor to change the date on the permit.
What should you do if you are in a deep trench and you start to feel dizzy? Get out, let your head clear, and then go back in again. Carry on working and hope that the feeling will go away. Make sure that you and any others get out quickly and report it. Sit down in the trench and take a rest.
Why is methane gas dangerous in confined spaces? Give 2 answers. It can explode. It makes you hyperactive. It makes you dehydrated. You may not have enough oxygen to breathe. You will not be able to see because of the dense fumes. What is the most important reason why people should be trained and competent before they are allowed to enter a confined space? Confined spaces never contain breathable air. Confined spaces are only found on house building sites. Confined spaces always contain flammable or explosive gases. Confined space entrants need to understand the potential hazards. What is the main reason for having a person positioned immediately outside a confined space while work is taking place inside it? To carry out a risk assessment for the work. To check compliance with the method statement. To start the rescue plan if there is an emergency. To supervise the work inside the confined space. What is the main cause of people dying while working in a confined space? Lack of oxygen. Too much oxygen. Presence of methane. Cold conditions leading to hypothermia.
What might happen if the level of oxygen drops below 8% in a confined space? Your hearing could be affected. There is a high risk of fire or explosion. You could become unconscious. You might get dehydrated.
When working in a confined space, what is it a sign of if there is a smell of rotten eggs? Oxygen, methane, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide. What is it likely to mean if the soil gives off a strange smell when digging? The soil contains a lot of clay. The ground could be contaminated. The soil has been excavated before. The ground has been used to grow crops in the past. Asbestos-containing materials, ACMs, can be difficult to identify. Asbestos is made up of hazardous microscopic fibres which can easily be inhaled. If you think a material contains asbestos, always assume it does. Stop work, warn others, and report it to your supervisor. Your employer should ensure that exposure to hazardous substances is prevented or adequately controlled. Health and safety information for hazardous substances should be detailed in a COSHH assessment. Control measures for working with hazardous substances should be monitored regularly. Wet cement and concrete can cause skin burns and dermatitis if they are in direct contact with your skin. Lead is toxic. The most common route of entry into the body is via the mouth, ingestion. Where are you most likely to come across asbestos? In a house built between 1950 and 2005. In any industrial building built after the year 2000. In any building built or refurbished before the year 2000. Asbestos has now been removed from all houses and buildings. Breathing in asbestos dust is most likely to cause which of the following? lung diseases, throat infections, dizziness and headaches, aching muscles and painful joints.
Exposure to asbestos fibres may result in which illness? Heart disease, skin cancer, dermatitis, lung cancer.
How can asbestos be correctly identified? The distinct colour of the dust. By getting a sample analysed in a laboratory. It is clear from the strong smell of the dust. By putting a piece in water and seeing if it dissolves. Which one of the following statements about asbestos is true? Asbestos fibres are most likely to enter the body through the skin. Asbestos fibres only cause health problems for smokers. Asbestos in buildings must always be removed regardless of condition. Asbestos fibres are most likely to enter the body through inhalation. Cement-based roofing sheets are a common material which can often contain what hazardous substance? Rust, dry rot, termites, asbestos. What is the main immediate hazard from kneeling directly on wet cement? Skin burns, dermatitis, eczema, skin rash. What does a COSHH assessment cover? Working safely in confined spaces, lifting heavy loads and how to protect yourself, the assessment of noise levels and how to protect your hearing, hazardous substances and how to protect yourself when using them.
Who should explain the health risks and safe method of work you need to follow, the COSHH assessment, before you start work with a hazardous substance? A Health and Safety Executive HSE Inspector. The Site First Aider. Your supervisor or employer. The Site Security People.
What is the first thing you should do if you find an unmarked container that you think might contain chemicals? Smell it to see what the chemical is. Move the container to somewhere safe. Put the container in a bin to get rid of it. Ensure that it remains undisturbed and report it. How is it possible to tell that a product is hazardous? It will always be in a cardboard box. It will always be in a black container. By the shape of the container or packaging. By warning symbols on the container or packaging. What does the word sensitizer mean on the packaging of a substance? It should not be used under any circumstances. It must be mixed with water before it can be used. That it could cause allergic reactions when handled. It is safe to use without personal protective equipment, PPE. Identify which of the following signs is associated with a substance being toxic if swallowed or inhaled. If warnings about how to work with hazardous substances are not followed, what is a likely consequence for workers? Good health, increased fitness level, decreased fitness levels, ill health. What should employers check regularly if you are working with hazardous substances? Your mood, your family, your health, your wages. A worker is using a new substance when they start to feel ill. What should the worker do? Stop work and report it to a supervisor or manager on site immediately. Nothing. It is acceptable to feel ill with certain substances. Continue with the work, but report it to the supervisor later. Enter the details into an incident report and continue to work with the substance. When working through a construction health and safety checklist, which of these hazardous substances should be identified? Lead, solvents, cement, asbestos. Asbestos, cement, paints, noise levels. Noise levels, solvents, dust, paint. Vibration levels, noise levels, asbestos, cement. Which of the following tasks could place a worker at the greatest risk of lead poisoning if control measures were not put in place? Plastering a ceiling in a new build home. Building a wall out of old stone. Cutting timber in a roof construction. Sanding down some old paintwork.
Congratulations! You are a step closer to success. Keep learning until you reach your goal. You can find a link in the top right corner to go to the next video.